The banner across my sister's living room read, "New Beginnings" in glittering letters. 30 people filled the space, champagne glasses in hand. My bankruptcy had become final that morning. Champagne, anyone? My sister held up a bottle, her smile wide. I stood in the corner by the bookshelf watching. My mother raised her glass from the center of the room. "To karma finally working," she announced loudly. The room erupted in cheers. My aunt added, "Sometimes people need to hit rock bottom to learn their lesson." I didn't say anything, just watched them toast to my financial destruction. 2 years of medical bills from a car accident had led to this. 3 surgeries, months of physical therapy, medications. Even with insurance, the costs had been devastating. I'd lost everything. I asked for help. "I need to borrow $10,000, I told my mother. "You should have been more careful," she'd said. My sister had been more direct. "I'm not enabling your poor choices. The accident wasn't my fault. A drunk driver had run a red light, but my family decided it was a lesson I needed to learn. So I'd filed for bankruptcy at 29, lost everything I built, started over from nothing. And they'd thrown a party." "She's being so quiet over there," my cousin said, glancing at me, finally learning some humility. More laughter. I finished my water and set the glass down. "I need to go," I said quietly. Nobody tried to stop me. I walked out of my sister's house, took the bus back to the studio apartment I was renting, and sat on the used futon that was my only furniture. That night, I made a decision. Not about revenge, about survival, about building something they could never take from me. I went back to work as soon as possible. Started at the bottom, data entry at a healthcare company, $32,000 a year. Worked every overtime shift, took weekend jobs. 6 months later, I'd saved enough for a healthcare administration certificate. Finished in 8 months. Got a coordinator job at a hospital foundation, managing grant applications for patients who couldn't afford medical bills. $48,000 a year. I understood those applications intimately. I'd lived it. Within a year, I was promoted to senior coordinator. Then program director, $75,000. Started consulting on the side. The fees added up. I invested carefully. 2 years after bankruptcy, the Sterling Medical Foundation recruited me as director of grant programs. 6 figures. The job oversaw $50 million in annual medical assistance grants. By year 3, I'd restructured their entire system and tripled their capacity. When the executive director retired, they offered me the position. At 33, I became executive director of a foundation distributing over $200 million annually. I controlled every grant decision. I'd built this from nothing, from that studio apartment and that bankruptcy party. Not for revenge, but because I understood what it meant to drown in medical debt with no lifeline. My family didn't know about any of this. I'd stopped attending their gatherings after the bankruptcy party. Blocked most of their numbers. Built my life quietly, separately. Then 3 years and 2 months after that party, an application crossed my desk. The name caught my attention immediately, Margaret Winters, my mother. I opened the file. She was requesting a grant of $180,000 for cancer treatment. Stage 3 breast cancer, requiring surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation. Her insurance had denied several procedures as not medically necessary. The out-of-pocket costs would bankrupt her. The irony wasn't lost on me. I read through the supporting documents, letters from her oncologist, hospital billing statements, a financial disclosure showing she had $12,000 in savings and a mortgage she could barely afford. Her application was strong. Under normal circumstances, she'd qualify for the full grant amount. We helped hundreds of patients in similar situations. I set it aside and continued reviewing other applications. 2 days later, another familiar name appeared, Jennifer Winters. My sister. Her husband had been in a serious accident, multiple injuries requiring extensive surgeries and rehabilitation. Their insurance had hit its annual maximum. They were facing $300,000 in uncovered medical expenses. She was requesting a grant of $200,000. I sat back in my chair and looked at both applications on my desk. The following week, a third application arrived, my aunt, requesting $75,000 for her daughter's emergency surgery and complications. 3 applications, 3 family members, all requesting assistance from the foundation I controlled. None of them knew I worked there. The foundation's executive director wasn't publicly listed on the website, and I kept my career progression completely private. As far as they knew, I was still struggling somewhere, maybe still paying off that bankruptcy. My assistant knocked on my office door. Ms. Winters? The grant committee meeting is in 10 minutes. Thank you, I'll be right there. I gathered the 3 applications and walked to the conference room. Our grant committee consisted of 5 medical professionals, 2 social workers, and 3 community members. I chaired the meetings but rarely influenced decisions directly. The committee reviewed applications based on medical necessity, financial need, and available funding. We went through 15 applications that afternoon. All 3 of my family members' requests were on the agenda. Application 2847, Margaret Winters. Dr. Patterson read the summary. Stage 3 breast cancer, requesting $180,000 for treatment costs. Medical documentation is solid. Financial need is clearly established. I recommend full approval. The committee nodded in agreement. Application 2851, Jennifer Winters. The social worker continued. Trauma case, requesting $200,000 for accident-related expenses. Again, strong medical justification and demonstrated financial hardship. I move for approval. Application 2856, another member added. Pediatric emergency surgery, $75,000 requested. Time-sensitive medical need, clear qualification for assistance. The committee was moving toward approval on all 3, standard procedure. They met our criteria. I could let it happen, let them be approved. Let my family receive the help they needed, the help they refused to give me. Or I could exercise my authority as executive director. I'd like to request additional financial documentation on these 3 applications before we approve, I said calmly. The committee looked at me, surprised. I rarely questioned their recommendations. What additional information? Dr. Patterson asked. I want to verify that the applicants have exhausted all other resources, family support, personal assets, other available assistance programs. Our guidelines require applicants to demonstrate they've sought help from all available sources before we provide funding. This was technically true, though we rarely enforced it strictly for cases with clear medical necessity. These applications seem straightforward, the social worker said carefully. I'm sure they are, but with requests totaling over $450,000 from applicants with the same last name, I want to ensure we're following proper due diligence. Let's request additional documentation before final approval. I could see the committee members exchanging glances, but they nodded. As executive director, I had the authority to request additional review. We'll send requests for supplemental information, my assistant noted. The committee moved on to other applications. Those were approved without issue. Over the next week, my family members were contacted by our grants office. They needed to provide evidence that they'd sought assistance from family members, document any available assets that could be liquidated, and demonstrate that no other funding sources were available. My mother called the foundation office 6 times. My sister called 9 times. They were transferred to various staff members, explained the process repeatedly, and grew increasingly frustrated. None of their calls reached me directly. The supplemental documentation began arriving. My mother disclosed that she had 2 adult children but claimed they were estranged and unable to provide assistance. My sister provided similar documentation. I reviewed the files carefully. Then I picked up my phone and called my mother's number, the one I'd blocked 3 years ago. I unblocked it first. She answered on the first ring. Hello. This is the Sterling Medical Foundation calling about your grant application, I said. My voice was steady, professional. Oh, thank God. I've been trying to reach someone for weeks. My treatment is scheduled to start next month, and I need to know about the funding. I'm calling because we need clarification on your application. You indicated that you have no family support available. That's correct. I'm essentially alone in this. Our records show you have 2 adult children. Have you asked them for assistance? She paused. My children and I are estranged. They wouldn't help. Have you actually asked them? There's no point. They've made their position clear. Ms. Winters, our foundation requires applicants to demonstrate they've exhausted all family resources before we provide funding. Without documentation that you formally requested help from your children, we cannot process your application. But I'm telling you, they won't help. Then you should have no trouble getting that in writing. Contact both children, request assistance, document their refusal, submit that documentation to us, and we can continue processing your application. This is ridiculous. I'm dying, and you're asking me to beg my children for money? We're asking you to follow our application requirements, the same requirements every applicant must meet. I hung up. My sister received a similar call from one of our program officers. Same message: document your request for family assistance before we can proceed. 2 days later, my phone started ringing, my personal cell, not the office line. Numbers I didn't recognize at first, then realized they belonged to my family. I didn't answer. They left voicemails, my mother crying and begging, my sister angry and demanding, my aunt confused and asking what was happening. The foundation says I have to ask you for help. My mother's message said, please, I know we haven't talked in years, but I'm sick. I'm really sick. The treatment costs are impossible. If you could help, even a little bit, please call me back. My sister's message was more direct. The Grant Foundation is being completely unreasonable. They won't approve our application unless we can prove we asked family for help. So I'm asking, can you help with my husband's medical bills? We need $200,000. I know you probably can't, but I have to ask so I can show them I tried. Call me back. I listened to all the messages, then I deleted them. A week later, my assistant came into my office. The Winters applications are creating some issues. The applicants keep calling, saying they can't reach their family members to get the required documentation. They're asking for exceptions to the policy. No exceptions, I said. Policy applies to everyone equally. One of them asked to speak with you directly, Margaret Winters. She says it's urgent. Transfer her to my line. A moment later, my phone rang. I answered. This is Director Winters. Director? I've been trying to reach someone in charge for weeks. My name is Margaret Winters, and I'm applying for a medical grant. Your staff is requiring documentation that's impossible for me to obtain. What documentation is that? They want me to prove I asked my daughter for financial help. But my daughter and I don't speak. We haven't spoken in 3 years. Why not? That's personal. Family issues. It's complicated. Then uncomplicate it. Pick up the phone and call her. You don't understand. She won't help. She's probably still struggling herself after her bankruptcy. Her bankruptcy? She made some poor financial choices a few years ago. Ended up in bankruptcy. She doesn't have money to help anyone. I see. And did you help her during that bankruptcy? Silence on the other end. Ms. Winters? That was different. She needed to learn responsibility. And now you need to learn humility. Contact your daughter. Request her assistance. If she refuses, document it. Otherwise, your application will be denied. Please, I'm begging you. I'm dying. I can't wait months while you enforce bureaucratic nonsense. You have 2 weeks to provide the documentation. After that, your application will be closed. I hung up. That evening, my personal phone rang again, my mother's number. I answered this time. Hello, Mom. She gasped. You answered. You called. I need help. I'm sick, cancer. The bills are over $100,000 and my insurance won't cover it. I applied for a grant, but they're making me jump through impossible hoops. I know we haven't talked in years, but I'm desperate. Can you help? Even a little bit? No. Please, I'm your mother. You threw a party when I filed for bankruptcy. You told me I needed to learn responsibility. Now I'm telling you the same thing. Learn to handle your own problems. That was years ago. I was wrong. I'm sorry. You're sorry now that you need something, just like you needed something from that foundation. But they have rules, just like I had needs when I was drowning in medical debt. Funny how that works. The foundation said I have to get your refusal in writing. They said, wait, who did you say you were? I smiled, though she couldn't see it. I didn't say, but since you're asking, I'm the executive director of the Sterling Medical Foundation, the person who makes final decisions on every grant application that crosses my desk, including yours. The silence stretched for almost 30 seconds. You. Her voice was barely a whisper. Me, the daughter who filed for bankruptcy 3 years ago, the one you celebrated hitting rock bottom. The one who built herself back up from nothing. The one who now controls the exact help you're begging for. Please, please don't do this. I'll die without treatment. Then maybe you should have thought about karma when you were toasting champagne at my bankruptcy party. Because apparently it does work, just not the way you thought. I ended the call. The next morning, I received formal written requests from all 3 family members begging for financial assistance, signed, documented, properly formatted. I attached them to their grant applications and sent everything to the committee with my recommendation. Denied due to documented family support resources that applicants refused to utilize despite the ability to assist. The committee approved my recommendation. I sent the denial letters myself. Sometimes people need to hit rock bottom to learn their lesson. They were right about that. They just never imagined I'd be the one teaching it.